And you're live.
All right. Well, welcome to TogetherCon and Roll the Dice. We are going to have a panel discussion here on beginning GMs, tips, the trade, pitfalls to avoid, and all of that. I'm Dave Houligard, a professional GM, and I've been running games for about 42 years now, playing them for about 43, I think. Might be longer, but my memory's getting also faulty. Um, let's see. That's a little bit about me. Let's go on to somebody else. Hallie, how about you?
Just muted myself.
Yes.
Hi, I am Hallie Palmer. I am, my pronouns are she, her. I stream with the cast streamers or cast gamers on our Twitch channel. I am also a moderator on the cast Discord. So we are a community of applied spiritual therapeutic tabletop gamers. So we
Nice.
like to use games in order to explore aspects of our identity and also work with the people that we work with in our professions.
That's fantastic.
Um, I also stream with Real Women of Gaming on Tankards, Tales and Treasures. I don't know. Or we change the name frequently.
Yep.
Vel is in that, and so is Crimson, Thea, and my friend Menachem, who's also from Cast. And I'm also the founder and owner of the Therapy Guild, which is just my small private practice where I use nerdy things with a lot of my clients as a social worker.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Uh, Amy, how about you? Iridian.
Hello. My name's Amy. Pronouns are they, she. And I I have dogs. Sorry. uh, and I have GM 7 sessions. I'm relatively new. Relatively new. I've been watching D&D since the pandemic started and YouTube to do instead of going out somewhere. Fell absolutely in love, and now Dave can't keep me out of his tables.
She's in 6 of my games, and 5 of them are the same scenarios. Can't get her to stop. JK, how about you?
Hey, I'm JK. So I'm in Oregon, US. Um, yeah, I've been playing and DMing since I was a teenager, and these days mostly playing with Dave and Keith and Amy at Roll the Dice and a bunch of other characters that we have. Um, so there you go. That's about it.
All right. Next.
Hi, I'm Keith. I've been gaming since I was 12, so about 38 years. Most of that has been spent playing, but I have done a fair amount of GMing as well.
Excellent. Tanwin?
Hi, yeah, I'm Tanwin. I'm based in New Zealand. I live about 40 minutes away from Hobbiton. And I have been GMing for about 5 years. My first experience was immediately got baptism by fire being a professional paid DM.
Oh,
Um,
Nice.
and I kind of started GMing pretty soon after starting to play.
Very nice. Thank you. Velos.
What's up? Yeah, I'm Vel. I run stuff on Real Women of Gaming. I'm married to Crimson. About it.
He was totally not forced to be in this panel.
Right. Vinny, your turn.
Hi, I'm Vinny the Troll. Professional game master, and I am in several games during the week for fun and profit. I've been DMing for about 20 years or so, and professionally gaming for a little over a year.
Nice. Crimson, since you're here, would you like to talk a little bit about yourself?
No.
Not even a blurb for TogetherCon?
I'm Crimson Pleasure. I'm the founder of Real Money Gaming. It's our third TogetherCon. I'm so happy to have everybody here and support us on Ko-Fi so we can do more amazing events, charities, and more. And I'm
Yes.
in like 12 panels, so you'll see.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you very much. So I thought I'd start us off with a talk about, um, first sessions, the concepts of DMing the first time, and some of the pros and some of the difficulties that arise with it as well. The first thing is it's a very social activity, and when you're taking the reins, your first job is really herding cats. You've got to relax and enjoy the moment, but you also have to be able to politely nudge people into playing at all. Sometimes some people want to play, but they're too embarrassed about it or something. Um, Sometimes you've got people who don't know each other at all, and that can be a little awkward.
Mhm.
So the zero session is really important for social bonding, in addition to getting the game started and everything else. I'd say that making the characters and getting all the equipment set up and house rules and stuff is almost secondary to the social aspects of it. You got to be able, when you're gaming, to express yourself in so many open ways. Um, and you get more benefit out of it if you do. But with that comes risk. And so your job as a GM is to help mitigate some of that social risk as well and make sure everyone's comfortable. Whether that's setting up, uh, questions, questionnaires at the very beginning about what you're comfortable with and what you're not.
Mhm.
Uh, those are aspects that you can add into it that just adds to your homework load. In addition to creating the content or reading all the content that you need to run the game, you've got all these other little tendrils of things that hopefully we're going to talk about here. Um, Hallie, why don't we start with you? What do you think about zero session and first time GMs?
Uh, well, when I first started playing D&D, because that's usually the first thing that people play, we session zero lasted a million years, it felt like, which was really more like an entire working day. And it was really learning the character sheet and figuring out just how to make your character. That was as a player, my very first session 0.
Mhm.
And I love tools like D&D Beyond. Do not think that in order to get started gaming that you have to do it all with pencil and paper. I mean, there is something nice with it, but D&D Beyond is really nice, and there's other tools like that that can just make it so that you click things and you put together your sheets, and it makes it a lot easier to teach a lot of new people to game. And
Absolutely.
but session zero definitely became more important for me when I started doing it therapeutically, like having therapeutic D&D sessions with clients. And session zero really needs to include a lot about safety rules, whether you use license and veils, the X card.
Yep.
And as I got involved with cast gamers, like I started learning even more about just the importance of establishing that safety. And
Yep.
so it's not just all about your character creation, especially if you're not playing D&D. If you're playing another game where it's a lot easier to make your characters, then session zero is probably going to involve like what you can and cannot talk about and how to navigate those situations.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mm.
JK, how about you?
Hmm.
Uh, you've come back to gaming after being away from it for a long time.
Yeah.
You've
Raising my kids for a while, it took all my time. So for a long time, I was out of it.
Right, and when you came back, you've had this urge to run a game for the last year, uh,
Yeah.
Call of Cthulhu or
Yeah.
Cthulhu, I should
Well,
say.
I meant to bring that up, right? Because I've been gaming for a long time, but it's mostly been AD&D back in the day, and then Cypher System when I joined you blokes. Um, but yeah, so I was thinking, well, how do you get into a new game, either as a player or as a GM? And well, I think the first thing is to familiarize yourself with the game. I bought some books. I've been starting reading them, but also to be a player first, right? So there's I've been thinking I'll watch YouTube videos of gaming sessions and then join, like at startplaying.com, join a professional GM game and play it a couple times to, just make sure I get the feel for it and how it's working, and then go in and try to run a game, right?
Right. Well, it brings up a
Oh,
very
yeah.
good point. A GM, whether the group is just getting together and you're experimenting with role playing for the first time, then somebody has to take the plunge and be the DM, and that's that. Generally, that person is going to stay the DM for quite a while too. But I highly encourage new GMs to be a player, turn over the reins to somebody, and be on the other side of the GM screen. It's an entirely different experience with that. So yeah, I highly recommend seeing both sides of that.
And
Chen,
I'm super excited about it too. Call of Cthulhu looks really fun.
oh yeah,
Can I
Chen,
jump in here? I think that can be easier said than done, joining as a player.
yep,
I know a lot of people who are trying to get into tabletop role-playing games for the first time, and last year I was the guild master of our of the Waikato Role-Playing Guild, which is a kind of group with 900 members where we kind of connect people within our region.
nice.
And the biggest question was, how do I get into a game? And GMs will find it a lot easier to get into a game by being the GM. And
Interesting.
if
Yeah.
someone jumps in, it's much harder to find a game as just a player, particularly kind of because everyone wants to play, but not everyone wants to step up and be the GM because it can be quite daunting.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I think kind of it is really good. I think I started off as a player and got to play for about 2 years before I started GMing, and that gave me a really good backbone of understanding of the rules. But kind of since becoming a GM, it has been much harder to take that step back.
Yeah.
Um,
I was just going
and
to ask, what is your favorite? Do you
What's my
prefer being the
favorite
GM?
sister? Or our favorite? Yeah, I think I actually prefer being GM. I have been playing in a Call of Cthulhu game, which has been amazing that I've just had to step back from. But yeah, as a GM, I've been running a 2.5 year long campaign for D&D 5e. And I've also helped set up a regular play event where we run kind of 8 week long campaigns once a week through our kind of local club, and that has been a really good opportunity for people to jump in as players if they haven't had the chance, or jump in as GMs for systems that they might be new to. So I got to run Monster of the Week for 8 weeks after having it on my shelf for 6 months. And and that was a really cool experience. So finding those opportunities to run the short frame campaigns rather than committing to that long kind of year-long or 2 year-long commitment. Some people keep their campaigns going for 20 years. So,
Right.
um,
Well,
yeah,
that
and I think it's
uh,
very much looking for those opportunities in the community that you can join in with.
sure. And you bring up a really good point that I've encountered many times over the years. Um, I get really passionate about a game or a scenario or something that I want to run. Usually it's homebrew campaigns, but sometimes with, actual made content, adventure modules and whatnot. But I I start playing it and then I need a break from it for a little while. If we've been into it for 5 or 6 months, I need something to recharge the cells to get in there. So we switch over to another game for a little while. The danger of that is sometimes you don't go back to the original and then you feel regret, right, for not doing it. So I'm going to ask the panel just openly here, what do you think about um, switching a game for a little while to kind of recharge the batteries and then going back to a previous campaign? Anybody have any thoughts?
I think more than just switching a game, if you have a group of like-minded players, that having one of your players step up to give you a break for a change of scenery and a chance to recharge as a player and put them behind the screen so that when you're running it, you're running your campaign that you started with, but when they're running it, it's their game, so that there really is a disconnect and an easy way to switch back and forth without forgetting it and avoiding the regret that you're talking about.
Right. And I usually pick a person who has been my biggest pain in the butt on the screen. And usually they settle down after that. The
I
first
have
word,
something to say about that.
yeah, right?
They usually
um,
called out.
Go
huh?
ahead. Go ahead, Holly.
Nobody feels called out.
Oh no. I was the biggest pain in the butt for when me and my friends first started playing together. And so one thing I would first, before I get into the little anecdote, if you're scared of playing D&D or any other TTRPGs and GMing, when you start playing, I recommend playing with all newbies, and then everyone's learning together. Like that's what I had avoided it for so long, and then finally I was able to put together my own group of friends, and we all learned it together. And that was just really empowering. But we got my friend to be the DM, and I was the rules lawyer, and nobody likes that.
No.
And I just got really, really into it. And then eventually, like when he needed a break, I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I probably should have just done it from the beginning. And that was a
I've,
more natural fit.
Sure.
I've got a counterpoint there actually. My first private experience GMing was actually all GMs.
Oh,
So we had set up a service at my work. So I developed a Dungeons and Dragons for autistic teenagers group, and
okay.
I invited all of the GMs for that group, for those groups, to be my players in a game. Luckily, pretty much all of them were my friends. But I actually, as like a first time GM, found that so helpful because they appreciated me taking the time out to GM them, but they also were able to give me lots of tips and tricks, and I was really open to um, having those post game discussions, and I didn't have to be teaching everyone the rules while learning to GM myself.
Right. No,
So that
I can't.
was, I'd say, like, don't be too daunted by running games for experienced players or GMs, because often experienced GMs will be really appreciative of not having to be the GM for
Yep.
once.
Absolutely. Well,
Absolutely.
and I
I mean,
remember I was a pretty introspective individual when I was a kid, and yet I was, I was very reserved and well, shy, and so starting to GM almost immediately. Matter of fact, I it was because I purchased games that I thought were really cool and wanted to look into it that I started into role playing games, and I was terrified. But it helped me grow as an individual, taking the reins, taking charge, and steering a group of people in whatever fashion we could. Um, really helped me a lot to come out of myself, because you kind of have to be when you're behind the screen.
I'm reminded
and
of
I
some advice that a speech teacher gave me one time. It
Mm,
was to remember that your audience wants you to succeed. They are your
mm,
fan and they want you to do well.
right.
I think that's important to
yes.
remember when you're, especially when you're a first time GM.
Absolutely.
I think
Amy,
one
first
of
time. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. You were probably about to ask me the same thing I was about to talk about. So cool. Hi.
Hey,
That's basically my GM style. So the first time that I ran a game, it was Honey Heist for Mr. JK's birthday. And I think the two best resources that I had was number one, everybody was drinking. So that really took the pressure off. Um, because either they weren't going to remember how terrible I was, or they were just going to bring utter shenanigans. And utter shenanigans is what I got. But I also had Dave playing. And so I had somebody that was used to herding cats. Of course, he played a honey badger, which was a whole other thing in and of itself.
I was so hard on
But
her; it was ridiculous.
it was, but I appreciated it because I am the chaos gremlin in all of his games, so I kind of got that back in kind. And but he was able to, from a place of a player, kind of give that assistance without taking over.
That's a tough trick for DMs. I'll tell you, GMs
Mhm.
like to take over. It's an instinctive response, I think. It's nothing that we have against whoever's running necessarily, but once you've been behind the screen 5 or 6 times, you get that. I don't want to call it an addiction to it, but it becomes your favorite thing to do. I think, Tanwood, I think you were talking about that a little while ago. Um, you really want to dive right in, and when you see another GM struggling, you want to give that person advice, and it just builds up inside you until you explode. It's like, no, 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 I can help you with this. Um,
And I tell you, figuring out what type of a, like, your style,
Mhm.
you're not going to necessarily know until you jump in, but there are a lot of things that you can do to kind of set yourself up. And I always recommend just watch stuff on YouTube. Honestly, watch players, watch games on YouTube.
mhm.
You don't have to settle for the popular ones, Critical Role and Dimension 20. If you watch Critical Role and you're thinking about becoming a DM, watch their one shots. They're taken over by the players
Mhm.
and not necessarily Matt Mercer. He's wonderful, but there's like a whole other, you cannot compare yourself to them. LA by Night, new game Who Dis with the Glass Cannon Network. Wonderful because it's games that are not D&D.
Right. So I think I'll switch us over now to each of us giving a piece of advice to our budding GMs. My first one is uh, to just relax, find a way to just be calm. You've done your prep work. The players' characters are all done, and they've worked on some backstories probably on their own and excited about building their own stuff. So they're really concentrating on themselves and what their character is going to do, not on what you're going to do. So you're there to just guide the story, create the story, um, let the characters create the story. You're just a guide. Don't feel like you have to rule with an iron fist and make this go down the path of the oh, how do I want to put it?
Let it
If
be
it's
organic, right?
puzzle, yeah, you don't have to lead them by the nose for everything. You can give them some free reign, and that will greatly enhance the session and take the pressure off of you. So you can still go back to your notes. You can still get the job done, but you don't have to be an adversary to the players. You can be with them on the journey, and the secret to that is just relaxing. Just find a way that you can just into it calmly, right? Take a fresh breath. What do you guys think? First advice for new GMs.
Well, I would say rule number one, have fun, right? Make it
Mhm.
fun. And rule number two, remember it's collaborative storytelling. As the GM, you're helping to guide the story a bit, but really it's everyone working together to tell a common story, and that's the real goal of role playing, isn't it? To step into another role and do it together.
And on that point, I think one of the hardest things for a GM to do, and let me know if you guys think this is true or not, when players have backstory elements that they really want to have in the game. When you've got 5 players, I've had as many as 11 to 17 players at a table sometimes. They want backstory stuff in there from 6, 7 different directions, and you're never going to remember to do it all. You're going to take all the notes you can. The chances of you getting through those notes again are pretty slim. because you've got all your regular prep work to do as well. So one of the hardest things I've found as a GM is to include backstory information and personal character stuff in a game. Have you guys found that to be true?
I think the answer there is to have less players.
Learned that lesson, yes.
Yeah.
Every year, Dave does this called the Halloween Dungeon. It's an all weekend long intensive game. We start on Friday evening and run through Sunday. And how many players do we on that, Dave?
We go between 7 and 11 on
Yeah,
that one.
so usually on the higher end.
Mm-mm. Too many.
But we have so much time during that period that everyone can explore their characters pretty well.
That's another limitation for GMs, is trying to fit what they want to fit within a certain time frame, 3-4 hours.
Yeah.
Anybody else have advice for new GMs?
I think I want to jump into the logistics on
Oh,
one
perfect.
hand, because it's fantastic being able to kind of highlight how cooperative the game is, and how you can work with your players to build the world or build the settings and use backstory elements. But you can't do that if you're not meeting regularly.
Right.
I found what was probably the key to the success of my 2.5 year long campaign was establishing the expectations for showing up right from the beginning, and then revisiting them whenever we saw that like certain players were dropping off and not coming to sessions as regularly, kind of not being afraid to have that discussion and say, hey, look, I pretty much put 4 hours a week planning into these games. If you're not going to respect me by showing up to the table, we need to talk about how, like, about that ongoing commitment. And
Charge that.
so yeah, this was for my friends.
But
So
the buy-in is really important. Something you find out when you're a professional GM is your players show up because they have that financial commitment too. And
mm,
some of my friends pay for some of my games, and I'm really uncomfortable with it. They insist, so there is that. But
mm,
just think about ways to get that buy-in. And I'm sorry to have
yeah.
interrupted. Please.
But no, that's fine. I think kind of one of the things for us was just establishing what we wanted to get out of the game, because we'd all been kind of playing a series of one shots and things, and we all wanted to sink our teeth into a really heavy, kind of very story focused campaign. And so we said, okay, if we're going to do this, we need to be able to play kind of at least once per fortnight. And we all compared our schedules and decided on that one time, and we said, okay, treat it like a team sport.
Yep.
This
Yep.
is the time we play every fortnight or every week. And as soon as kind of things came up, instead of trying to reschedule and put it into a different night or whatever, we just said, look, if more than 2 players cannot come, this was a 5 player game. If more than 2 players cannot come, we do not play, and we just pick up the following fortnight. And that was really hard for some people, but it also encouraged, rather than trying to kind of rejig everyone's schedules again and have that conversation of, oh yeah, I'm free on Saturday. Oh, but I can only do Saturday afternoon. Oh, I'm busy on Saturday afternoon. Kind of, it gets really cumbersome as the GM to also be running these sessions while also herding the cats and getting everyone to line up their schedules right. So having that expectation from the start was really important in keeping that game going. Because I hear so many stories of people starting a game and then people drop off the map and stop showing up or whatever, and life doesn't stop. Like, you've got to prioritize your games if you want them to succeed. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
That's a
Great
really
advice.
important point, is setting and managing expectations from the get-go.
Yep. Session 0. It's hard to incorporate everything into session 0. So that particular comment I usually hold back until session 1. Session 0's got so much going on to it, and it's a time that can make or break a group too. So it's really good to be able to cover that, but usually in a future session, after the personalities start to mesh in, that you can even start that process. Velos, you got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically you get out of the game what you want, basically. So session 0 is important to establish like the ground rules, like you said, and everything else. Basically, you can see also if you don't know the players and haven't ran the game before. You can just flat out ask them, like, do you guys like role playing more? Do you like dungeon crawls? Do you like puzzles? Do you like it's also not just their opportunity to like make their characters and stuff and then say I'm done. It's your opportunity to basically see okay, do you guys have like stuff that you don't want to see in the campaign? There might be like triggers for people so that you can, people don't like, slavery or indentured servants or whatever. Make sure that you don't have anything in that harkens back to that. Um, in the game. Some people, might have something that you didn't even think about, and you have it planned already in the system. And maybe you can talk to them. It's a time for all of you to make sure that the fun that you're going to have in the future is going to be there,
Right.
and eliminate some arguments that you might not have, that you don't want to have in the future.
Sure.
And as far as like getting people on different schedules, it's ridiculously hard. One of the things that I always say is if like you have some people that are like, yeah, let's just do a dungeon crawl. One thing that you can do, you don't have to come up with some story if if the character's not there that week. Just they're not there that week, and then next week you like I ran Mad Mage because we were having so difficult of a
Yep.
time getting everybody there, and literally just like did drop in drop out like a video game. I had a priest NPC that was the healer. He had their bag of holding. He had everything in it, that they collected, and basically just ran it like a drop in drop out video game. There's people that'll be okay with doing that,
Mm,
um, and people that can be there that week. They still get the experience. When they go down to level 2 or whatever, and they go up a level, they still do that. And that way, it doesn't really hurt anybody. And you just have a notes section, and everybody can see the notes, what happened that session. So, I mean, there's tons of ways to be able to get around scheduling conflicts. You just need to talk to the players and get feedback in the session 0 at first point.
absolutely. Absolutely. That brought up something to my mind, as an advice to new GMs, or maybe not advice, maybe just beware of the pitfall. Um, you mentioned 4 hours of prep time, a week. That's for one game, right? Uh, you've got multiple games going on. You compound that time problem, and so you put all this effort into writing up the background, writing up the scripts, getting your encounters set, and then your players do something completely different. It's it's chaos in motion, right? You cannot plan for everything the character's going to do, so don't try. Um, make yourself some notes about what if, but for the most part, just be ready for random chaos. And they're going to go in a different direction, or want to go in a different direction. So you're going to need to guide them back to your main storyline somehow, but don't force them down the rails. It's not a train moving down a track, right? It's somebody wandering the countryside on every little side road and main thoroughfare that they have. Um, guide them, don't force them. I did the force them things for too long, and that wasn't fun for anybody, really.
We've derailed your plans plenty of times there, Dave.
Oh.
I don't.
There
I
was
don't
that
Never.
plan
there,
too much
one
anymore.
game where you had this whole side scenario, and this lady came up. She's like, help me! I need to get something for my god." And my paladin was like, "Nope, not helping someone else's god." And another player was like, "Oh no, there's no money in it for us." And another player is like, "Oh, that sounds boring," and so we just wouldn't do it.
And
Threw the
which
entire hook out the window.
that was a stepping stone to a much bigger adventure.
Yeah, so we derailed the whole campaign.
Yep, I had to
I think
completely.
I have a couple of points I'd love to add to that. One is the 4 hours a week prep does not happen these days. Since becoming more confident as a GM, I've really decreased my prep, and I am more willing to kind of be innovative and really just kind of when the players throw a curveball at me, I'll run with it. But I also know that as a new GM, having that really solid foundation of prep was key to me feeling confident and running with what my players threw at me. And then the other side is I think if you're planning to run a module, a pre-written campaign or a pre-written set of adventures, there is some level of railroading that sometimes needs to occur. And that is agreed upon by the players in that session 0 towards the start. And it's really important as the GM sit down and say, look, there are going to be some times in this story where you might go, why is my character doing this? And we need to work together and figure out a way to have that buy-in, and just go, sometimes the whole reason is we are the heroes and we're going to help whenever someone asks.
Right.
And so kind of particularly, yeah, if you're jumping into a pre-written story, sometimes it's really important to establish that there will be an element of kind of, if we go off the rails here, I have no book to follow. And so, yeah, encouraging players to kind of take those seeds, those quest seeds or story seeds, and just run with it and see where it goes. Is yeah, I'd say is still just as important as letting the players have that freedom too.
Right.
Yeah.
Hallie, did you have a comment on that?
I did, but Amy does too. So I was going to let her go first.
Letting them know, it's like, I have a spoon. I'm going to give you the spoon. If you do not eat the stuff on the spoon, it's going to turn into a fork, and I don't know how that's going to work. So just understand that.
There you go. Hallie?
I've got like 2 things. I'll probably forget the second one.
Sure.
So in the beginning, we talked about this a little bit before we started the panel, about how when you first start GMing, that you do all the work. You do all of it, like, because it does make you feel more confident. It's going to mean that you are able to just like force feed yourself all of the rules as quickly as possible. But then as you go on and like as you're like, I have other things to do in my life besides tabletop RPGs, and then the first time that you wing it and it goes well, that can be really exciting too. So those are my 2 modes. It's either ADHD hyperfixation or it's ADHD, let's just see how this goes. And then on like point 1.5 is that sometimes running a module is way harder. I know that my anxiety goes through the roof because for some reason, because there's a manual, basically, I feel like I have to like do it justice. Whereas every time I've done it myself, it's just like I print out a map that I find, I write difficulty checks on the map right there, so I don't have to be flipping through a book or searching on D&D Beyond. But then when I want to do if I want to do a one shot, I'll probably put a little bit more time into that because I have this idea. Like I did a cleric convention where everyone had to be a cleric. I asked my group, if you could be just one class for D&D, all of you had to be it, what would it be? And they chose cleric. And so I created a one shot around that. But if I'm doing a longer thing, I'm going to let the group help me make that.
Sure.
I think that might be what I was going to say. Oh, and then the alternative is playing a game like in the Powered by the Apocalypse vein, where everyone kind of creates the setting and the story together.
Yeah.
And the GM is the one guiding everyone. But in session 0 or 0.5, you are talking about what kind of setting do you want, what's the genre, that kind of thing. And it can be really freeing for the GM.
That's something on another panel we could discuss sometime, is the difference that the system makes on the playing, on the development of a group and a GM. That's a whole other thing on its own.
And
We
I
are
tell
about
you,
out of time.
oh,
Oh, go ahead. Your
You
last
got a
word.
couple more minutes. Keep going.
Oh, okay.
don't feel as though you cannot make changes mid stride.
Right.
If you're in person, set up that GM screen. If you're virtual and you want to roll something, if you feel like eh, you could roll it privately. You could just roll it in person and then be like, "Oh yeah, no, this person that's about to kill that character, they didn't hit. They didn't hit. Oh, this bad guy that I set up with, 400 HP, and I'm now realizing that was a really bad call. Okay, he's almost dead now because I've just taken 200
Mhm.
HP away from him. Like those things, you can do that. This is your thing. You make those decisions and you can make them, and you don't have to tell anybody else that you made that decision.
There's a sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a great anecdote. Um, Somebody was watching a DM run a game for his players, and they were fighting a dragon, and he wasn't keeping track of the hit points.
Yeah,
The other DM's like, "How do you know when they're done?" And he goes, "When they're no longer having fun."
that's right. That's right. When the
Yeah, it's
story,
like you don't have to tell them how many hit points it has. You don't have to tell them what it's. Keep it to yourself to advance the story. It's not
exactly.
about the roles. It's not about the rules. It's is everybody having fun? And when it's no longer fun, reduce the thing's hit points. Make it close
Right.
to death. Make it miss.
And I think I'll have a closing comment based off that one there. Um, the rules are a guide. They're not set in stone. Matter of fact, in most of the forwards of most of the RPGs I've seen,
Yep.
this is a framework for you to work in. You can make up what you want. You can discard what rules you want. Session zero is a good time to talk about rules. But when you're going through and you're having that fight with the dragon, give that dragon some different abilities, right?
Yeah.
Step it up. A lot of the players, especially the rules lawyers, read the DMs, read the monster manuals, and they're like, "Oh, I've had this recently where the players are like, I know all of this information about that creature," and so they're going to metagame it, and they
Yep.
can't help themselves but metagame it.
Yeah.
And so I just start throwing in random things that it can do, based on the moment. So uh, it, we've talked about this in about 4 different ways. Um, the GM should be flexible. You got to move on your feet. You got to duck and dodge, right? You got to be prepared for all the crazy stuff that's going to be coming your way from the players. You got to keep it back on controller and on track. You've got to be prepared for the rules lawyers, right, and not get angry about it, but try and find a positive solution.
Mhm.
We all had great comments. Anybody? One last comment, Holly?
Well, we have a question. Most of it has been comments in the panel room chat, but we have a question from Otter Limits. How do you feel about rolling behind the screen versus in the open? I
Um,
am mixed on this.
we have a show on that actually. We spent an entire session on that concept on all things gaming. Um, it's a mixed bag. Uh, it comes down to honesty, and the players, if you're cheating, feel like they're cheated, right? If they know that you fudged the die rolls, they don't have the solid victory that they had before they knew that, right?
Mhm.
You don't want to deflate the moment.
Can I interject? I'm sorry, just one tiny, teeny, tiny thing. Okay.
Who are you? You didn't introduce yourself.
No, I didn't. I am a figment of everybody's imagination. I am a player of two of the people in this panel. I know for a fact they both have fudged rolls.
Oh yeah,
And I am fine with that because I didn't die a horrible death at the wrong time. Because, and I just put one tiny thing as a player. I have a character that I lost that was killed, cannot come back, And I am still really mad about that. This is about 6 years ago. It was a dumb situation, and I'm still upset about it. Now, not everybody's like that, but I'm just saying, I don't feel cheated. I feel very, very happy because I poured a lot of shit into my characters.
Right.
I'm going to
You
shut
know,
up
you can
now.
also use it as a tool. So maybe most of the time you roll behind the screen, but then if you really want to ratchet up the tension, you start rolling in front of everybody.
Yep.
Yep.
I was going to say, if you want to increase the drama in the moment, you reveal the role. I did that last night in one of my games. I was like, okay, let's see what happens. I will reveal the role. And they're like, oh, shit, this really means something.
Right.
Yeah.
For one shots, like one thing that I did when I've only had one player death or character death, not a player death.
Oh.
But because it was a one shot, when their character died and the main bad guy was a necromancer, I handed her the sheet for an undead creature and she got to continue play.
Yep.
I like having little backups for that. Like
Absolutely.
things
That's
so
great.
that people can still engage in a fun, meaningful way while and not feel like they're losing out. Because who knows how long that final fight could have gone? It could have gone for another hour and a half, and they would have just been sitting there.
Right. Yep.
The
No,
other
it's a
thing,
good call.
like one of my favorite things to do, especially like virtual tabletop. I do it in person too, but literally just roll a d20 on a virtual tabletop without saying anything, and then watch the players freak out.
Oh, absolutely.
That pisses me off when you do that.
Have them like right after a check too. Like, hey, make a perception check for me. Don't tell them why. Make a perception check. Then you just roll that d20 on the table. Don't mention it anymore. Say, okay, keep going.
You want to really ratchet that up? When the character is going to take 2d10 damage, roll 10d10. The players just freak out when they hear all the dice going, oh no, my God, what's going to happen? I think we're out of time here. We were a little bit over. Thank you all for joining the panel, and thank you all for listening. I hope some of our advice helped, and I hope it didn't hinder. Don't be daunted. Take the plunge. Be a GM. It's a very rewarding experience.
It is.
And have fun.
And have fun. Yeah, first and foremost, and always have fun.
Yes. Find those little moments of joy, even if there's nothing going on. Asking your players, okay, so you walk up to the door and you just open it. There's nothing wrong with that door. Nothing wrong with that door at all. But it gives you a little bit of joy.
Things that you do, both positive and negative, will have a long-lasting effect. Evidently, someone's still cross about their character dying 6 years ago.
Vel's the reason I have trust issues. Are you just gonna open the door? No, not now.
I'm going somewhere else now.
See inside this thing.
Thank you all so much, Dave. Organized this from Roll the Die. Thank you all so much. And cast gamers, and of course, our own DMs from Real Women Gaming. Thank you for all being amazing people. I know a good deal of you are on other panels that we have pertaining to DMing and other things this weekend. So we're very excited to see you again. And remember that they all have booths in different places. Everybody's here kind of throughout the weekend, except for when Hal leaves us because she doesn't love us anymore on Sunday.
I'm probably gonna join from like the airport and the airplane. Like they have Wi-Fi everywhere now. Like I'll be around tomorrow.
So thank you all so much. We have the Bodana group is presenting therapeutic D&D or RPG is not just D&D next. So yes, so go have fun, do things, and we will be back shortly. Again, thank you to all of our amazing panelists. Have a good rest of con.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you.
TogetherCon.